Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Leanne Wong. I'm the Director of Talent at itBit, and I actually joined the company about 2.5 months ago. So it's been quite a journey since the beginning. My role has really been to shepherd itBit through this implementation of Holacracy. And today my goal is to share our experiences. It's not to convince you that Holacracy is what you should be doing, because it isn't for everyone. But hopefully, this presentation might spark a new idea or a new way of thinking about talent management. So a Harvard professor, Edward Glacier, he's actually a professor of urban planning, and he also is the author of The Triumph of the City. And he talks about when a city doubles in population, innovation or productivity increases per capita by 15%. Now, this is the opposite of what happens when a company doubles in size. And if you've been at a company that has scaled pretty quickly, you may have experienced a slower pace in innovation. Companies that adopt self-management and operate more like cities actually see wildly more success, and people actually display higher levels of engagement and overall happiness. So today we're going to cover a couple things. Why did itBit choose this new kind of operating system? What is Holacracy? What does it mean in theory versus practice? And where do we go from here? So a little bit about what we do. We're in the Bitcoin space, which is still quite new. Not a lot of people know what it is, but today there are over 110,000 companies that are accepting Bitcoin. The blockchain technology is actually expected to reduce banks' infrastructure costs by $20 billion by the year 2020. So it is a very innovative, very new kind of business to be in. And what's so interesting about Bitcoin is that it's a decentralized digital currency, so there's no single source of power. It's peer-to-peer, so users can actually transact directly without an intermediary. It's a public ledger, so it is transparent, and it's open source, so anyone can add to it. We actually wanted to use a lot of these factors that make Bitcoin extremely efficient in the way that we operated our business. So we chose a new operating system called Holacracy. The way that our founder actually came to the realization that we needed to do something differently is because we're a very new kind of business. itBit is actually the first federally regulated Bitcoin exchange in the United States. On May 8th, we actually launched in the US, and the goal has always been to build a new kind of organization. In fact, in my interview cycle, Chad had said, building a culture of empowered individuals is one of the most important things that we're going to do. Chad was actually at a retreat, and he was sharing his vision of creating this really disruptive kind of company. And he was talking to this 93-year-old Trappist monk. And the monk actually handed him this book, Reinventing Organizations. And he said, if you want to be a truly disruptive financial services company, you need a new way of operating altogether. So this book, Reinventing Organizations, introduces a couple of really interesting theories. It's this theory of evolutionary teal organizations, the idea of self-management, which is based on trust and even an easy flow of information, and clear accountability. This idea of wholeness, where everybody is of equal worth, that everybody is working towards a safe and caring workplace. The separation of work and life actually becomes smaller because people feel like they can bring their whole selves to work. And there's an emphasis of constant learning and feedback. When we think about purpose, there's a collective purpose that the organization as a whole is moving towards. Then there's the individual purpose, which sort of ties into that larger focus. And he also says, stop planning for the future. because if you try to do that, you will fail. And he also says, when you focus on purpose, profit will follow. So there are several kinds of organizations that exist today. Years ago, 100 years ago, we operated in this infrared or magenta type of organizational structure, and it was purely based on survival. Today, there are several kinds of organizational structures. Red organizations focus on power and structure. There's an emphasis of authority and formal roles. There's stable processes, a lot of bureaucracy. Military organizations sometimes operate in this way. Orange is focused around achievement, innovation, accountability, and meritocracy. And then green organizations are all about people, purpose, values, and empowerment. So a lot of really innovative tech companies are operating in this way, and you might see some of these creeping into organizations that you might work at. Maybe there's a flexible work-life policy where you can work from home. Maybe there's an open vacation policy. That's a step towards self-management. Now, when you make the jump to a teal organization, which is all about shared power, decentralized network, self-management, and wholeness, you see that results and engagement go way up. And there's a level of trust now that your people, your employees feel about coming to work and bringing their whole selves. So when you take this jump, you really need a clear structure to operate effectively. Otherwise, it could be chaos. So what that structure is Holacracy, and it's a system which replaces top-down paradigm with a new way of achieving control by distributed power. This is a quote from Brian Robertson, who is actually the founder and creator of Holacracy. And like you mentioned earlier, there are a lot of really innovative companies that are moving in this direction, like Medium and Zappos and David Allen of Getting Things Done. So this is what itBit looked like pre-Holacracy. Very similar to any traditional model. There's a CEO where a lot of the power is kind of coming from the top down, and there's a segmentation of groups underneath. And this is what our structure looks like today. So instead of departments, we have circles. And circles are really value and purpose driven. So if you see brand communications, is brand communications as the purpose, but it used to be called marketing. Risk management, it used to be called compliance, but now there's an emphasis of purpose rather than department. So these subcircles lie within the general circle, and my role currently lies within the general circle. My team is very small. Usually circles are between 4 and 6 people. We're under that. So while my title externally is Global Director of Talent, I play a lot of roles internally. And the roles are the little green circles. So some of my roles today are compensation architect, interviewer, culture ambassador, and there are very clearly defined roles and accountabilities and domains that I own. So getting to this place took a lot of work. Since the very beginning, since actually the beginning of me starting at itBit, we've been having these conversations about what Holacracy is, what are the principles, and how does it work. We actually worked very closely with Holacracy 1. Brian Robertson is actually up there with our CEO, Chad. This is Chad, our CEO. And we got to practice tactical and governance meetings. And that's really the structure and framework in which decisions are made within Holacracy. So tactical meetings are all about bringing tensions that you're feeling on a day-to-day basis to a meeting and solving them. After every meeting, you have an actionable output, you have information, or you have a project. So there's always a step forward. In governance meetings, the purpose of governance is really to allow for organizational change, and governance meetings happen twice a month. That's where new roles are proposed or new processes are proposed, so your organization can actually change at the speed in which your business changes. So what is Holacracy like in practice? Your first governance meeting is really tough, and it feels a lot like this. It's really awkward. You don't know the rules of the game. You don't know where you're supposed to be. And you sometimes get really frustrated. But with practice, like anything, you'll eventually become an athlete, a professional athlete, where you can move with speed and agility through the decisioning process, where everybody knows where they should be moving and what they should be doing. It's like muscle memory. And so we've actually started, while we're not here yet, we have started to see some really strong benefits coming out of the Holacracy model. So there's greater clarity in roles, there's speed in the decision-making process, there's greater empowerment in the people feeling able to make decisions in their role, and there's far more transparency in communication. So as the Holacracy lead, I've been having conversations with many different people in many different areas of our business. And so our graphic designer was struggling with being on a very small marketing team, feeling like what else is she besides just a graphic designer? And through this process, we actually defined roles for her outside of marketing or brand communications. She's a culture ambassador, she's an office beautifier, and she has specific accountabilities and domains that she owns with those roles. I was talking to our developer operations lead, and because of the meeting structure, there's always an actionable output that comes out of a meeting. So what he said to me was, oftentimes you bring up something and it's not the right forum or it's not the right time, and so the topic of discussion is tabled for a later meeting. And so that actually never happens within Holacracy. If you have attention, and attention is defined as something where reality is separate from the potential of where you could be, he was like, the tensions are solved in every single meeting. I have an actionable item and a step forward. So it's definitely become a lot more efficient. Holacracy also, just because the way that it drives equality and everyone has a voice, an equal voice, it's actually helped to rebalance our decision-making process across global offices. So we faced a challenge where Singapore was launched in our product development phase, and then our headquarters were moved to the New York office. And so the speed in which we were operating in New York was so much faster. Decisions were being made in New York and sort of pushed down to Singapore without a lot of input. Now that we have circle structures and meetings where Singapore is appropriately represented, there's a rebalance of that. So kind of tying back what Holacracy brings is it's a much more flexible organizational structure. There are clear roles and accountabilities. In this new meeting format, there's always an action item. There isn't analysis paralysis and you keep talking in circles. It's a clearly defined process where it's like, this is the project, this is the action, this is the information that I need to step forward. There's more autonomy in teams and individuals to solve problems themselves because now they have domain ownership. And there's a very unique decision-making process which continues to evolve the organizations. The governance meetings are really where this happens. And it doesn't happen, at the board meetings where you need to ask for permission. It happens twice a month in a governance meeting, where if you see a role that needs to exist or you see a process that needs to change, that's when it happens. So what's next on our roadmap? Holacracy gives a lot of opportunities for us to change a lot of things and upgrade the operating system. So adoption is one that I'm really focused on right now. It's making sure that people who are at itBit now understand the rules of the game because it takes practice. Hiring is a new challenge because it adds a layer of complexity. We not only need to find the right fit and the right skill set, But we also now need to find the people that are bought into this new way of operating. And it's not for everyone. Performance management, onboarding, and compensation are all things that don't have a perfect formula for it. And so it really becomes the job of the organization and the people, the stakeholders in the organization, to figure out what's right for your company. And I just want to close by saying, similarly to Bitcoin, which is decentralized, there's no governing authority, itBit employees now are empowered to make decisions with the freedom to operate without bureaucracy in this new model. So that's it. If you guys have any questions, or you want to email me and you want to have further discussions around this crazy new structure, feel free to email me. I'd love to talk.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.